Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Hope you're having a great night. Here we are, hailing from the capital, Olympia. We're just gonna check out the night and see what's happening on this Sunday night. Hope you're all most well. You know, I'd kind of gone quiet for a minute. I thought, you know, here I am talking about the Marquis de Sade when I'm talking about social workers. But it was funny. The other day, I don't know, I was listening to Tim Dillon, and it was funny. He was sort of saying the same thing. He said, you know, you've got people that, you know, have various problems. Maybe it's mental problems, maybe it's just a series of unfortunate events, you know, extreme alcoholism, things like that. But you also have a safety net within a society to address all of that. Like, it's not like a big deal, you know, like it's something that can be addressed, and that is where the problem seems to lie. And you know, he was kind of talking about the area where he lives, and that the mayor, somebody wanted to shut down an encampment. They just felt it was bad and dangerous, and he said that all of his liberal friends were really upset about it. Like, they had signs out saying, "Save the homeless camp," you know. And he was thinking, why aren't they just putting people into housing? Why do they want to save a place that you wouldn't wish anyone you loved to have to be? That's the Union Gospel Mission. And I don't know, you know, they were in the news a few years ago, their Tacoma branch on Cairo, and it wasn't like saying it was bad or good. It was just like, you know, Como News here reporting. And they were bringing up busloads of people from LA, almost like it was an immigrant thing, but it wasn't immigrants, but like, we've got to get these people out of LA. But it just kind of was in an intense thing. So there are some of their tiny houses. I guess that's a new tiny village, which is probably way better than being on the street, but still, it's like a weird thing. Like, it's like kind of like not like a really bright social worker. Like, why not just put them in an apartment, you know? And it's been kind of weird seeing things about apartments now that, you know, so much is owned by places like BlackRock, where it doesn't matter if an apartment's being rented or not. So they can put something up for $10,000 a month and prefer to keep it empty. So, you know, there's some weird stuff going on. I've been really wanting to do stuff on Tavistock. There was a really good vid. I haven't seen it yet. Like, I only started to see like a little bit of it. And it was about, you know, just how darn key Tavistock is as a, you know, as a place, right? It's like insane how important it is. And maybe Laurel Canyon too. Maybe Laurel Canyon is like a mini, you know. And I'd like to, you know, now that we're talking, I don't know, now that I'm sort of musing and driving downtown, it's like, you know, Theodore Adorno did go to New York with the Rockefellers and then LA, and I'm wondering if he was part of that Laurel Canyon music scene. Was he influential with the LA sort of 60s music scene? That would be interesting to note, and Tavistock is just so important because it was really, a mind control on a mass scale, very secretive, right? Part of a major government, right? The UK, and so shadowy, and just like so behind the scenes, but so influential. So I'm sorry that we haven't been doing more of that. I've got like a spoiled doggy. It's like whenever I go to the computer, because it seems, important to kind of show the photographs of where it is, right? Where it is we are talking about. And to try to get a grip on what on earth was there. Endgame, what was the Tavistock Institute trying to create with things such as the Beatles and Theodore Adorno and all of that very mysterious stuff. It's just so mysterious. And really everything seems to be, the more we look into it. I've been watching a Greek channel for the last few days, and that's wild, about just, the interpretations of ancient Greek texts, and how so much has not been translated from antiquity. And that's really more, up my dad's alley than mine. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was, he went to the Middle East a lot, and he had one, he, usually just, had a great time, and, met interesting people. There was, even one person he knew there who had a motorcycle with a sidecar, and they'd ride around like old Jerusalem and things like that. But he did have like one creepy story once about, I guess it was maybe the 80s, maybe early 90s, he had gone and was on a bus. He was on a bus. I think he was in Israel. He would go to Jordan, Syria, all those places. And he really feels it had to do with the person he was sitting by and talking with, and that because he was talking with him on the bus and they kind of had buddied up or something, he felt that he was now targeted as well. Our little black house is down there, the little remains of it. And he was sitting on the bus with a scholar from Oxford. And a lot of actually these texts kind of go to Oxford and then just stay there. And I think in the beginning my dad just thought like a lot of things weren't being translated, because once something was translated, once something was published, then there would be other people who would come along and say, see, now I don't know if that's like a fentanyl person up there. They're just kind of standing like Slender Man, just unmoving, but sort of like in the road. A little bit chilling. So this man was Um, I don't know if it was like ancient Greek. I do remember Aramaic was involved in certain things. And, all of a sudden at some point the bus was stopped. And there were, like he said, there were like kind of these sort of, maybe slightly like degenerate hippies out there, like, smoking weed or taking acid, or, it was kind of like a little bit of rave culture stuff going on. So when the bus got stopped, he assumed, of course, that, they're gonna go after these kids that are, getting high and smoking weed on the bus, blah, 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 blah. There's another unimaginative, disgusting state building. And then, it's not a state building, but it's the credit union. But then there's that hateful area down there. They took away my beautiful old buildings and pretty tree-lined alley. But then they took that guy and my dad off the bus, and no one else. I mean, this is serious stuff. This was like Israeli military stuff, like really hardcore. And like my dad never had like exaggerated stories like this, right? He traveled all over the place, but this is, one of those sort of few just really creepy ones. But they took them and they see how they keep all the lights on. Isn't that just weird? They took them and they actually strip searched them, which was like horrible to hear, that was done to him. And oh my God, it's so weird hearing the Greek scholar. It sounds like it's par for the course for the rituals of antiquity or something. But they strip searched them both and just completely ignored, I don't know, those crazed dope smoking hippies or whatever. And it had to do with that man's research. I guess that there was, maybe, I don't know, maybe there was anger over, we're saying that this is part of our religion, and if you're seeing it coming up, way before that, in Greek, as opposed to whatever you want it to be. So there is like some weird, academia sadly is very gatekeeper-esque. It very much, you're not allowed to go out of a certain box. And I remember reading Elaine Pagels' book, The Gnostics, back when it was published, like late 70s, maybe 1980 or something. And they had found these ancient texts, like the real thing, like sealed in jars that were rolled in tar. It was the Nag Hammadi. And my dad even met the guy who found them. It was a shepherd. It was a sheep herder, and the sheep herder was actually came across them, found the old papers, and was trying to light the papers on fire to be able to warm a drink that night. It was like, oh wow, I found this cave, there's these jars, and there's this paper that's really dry, and the paper would not burn. And so the shepherd took it into town. There's these people who will buy this sort of thing, so he kind of lugged it into town and showed him an archaeologist who enjoyed buying antiquities, and the archaeologist completely freaked out and was going like, oh my God, you tried to light this on fire. This is like, super ancient text. And it was, I believe, old Gnostic texts, and they were, being hunted by the Romans. And so they had put everything in giant jars that were ceramic, pottery, and then had rolled them in tar and everything. So these were discovered in 40s, 50s at some point, and no one really, it never made a splash in the in the theological establishment or anything. It was as if it didn't happen. And this, you would think, would be a big deal, would you not? Oh my God, oh how cool, wow. Imagine, here we have actual real ancient texts from, this time that we're all so fascinated by. And it was basically, crickets. It was a profound radio silence. They already had their narrative. They didn't want this other new stuff on the market that might take away, oh my God, the whole narrative that they've set up about what everything is. So anyway, I'll try to get to where I can film, where we can kind of look at maps and things like that without being mega barked at. So many, many blessings.